Hello, Scott. Good. Hello, Andy. I got a few things
Hey,
in store.
hey guys, how's it going?
Multi-layered answer there. Yeah. Welcome to Trade of the Week. This is our typical Tuesday, 2 o'clock Eastern webinar that kind of focuses on the trade of the week that went out this week and maybe last week. Catch up with some of the past ones, and we'll talk about some other things that happened today. And let's just get right into it. You can see the agenda when we get there. Quick reminder, you guys, the early showers, always remember me saying the same thing, but nothing's changed. We are a content provider, software as a service company. You should not be considering what we're discussing and showing here today as investment advice. If you guys need investment advice for you and your family, you got to seek out the right professionals, the RIAs, and the brokers who basically are trained and licensed to do that. We're just going to have some fun and look at a few things and maybe look at a few charts. You're not alone with trade ideas. We really pride ourselves on our onboarding and our customer support and satisfaction, primarily by many things. One, the live trading room, which is right here with Barry Anderson, trading his own account, doing extremely well at moderating the room, trading his own account, and answering questions about the product and things. So that's a great place, and it's free. Free is always a great price. You do not have to be a subscriber to Trade Ideas to join the live trading room with Barry. The Monday through Thursday webinars, 2 p.m. Eastern. Yesterday was Jamie and myself. Today is myself and Andy. Tomorrow will be Dan and Brad, and then back to Andy. And I think I'm going to fill in on Thursday as well. But the Friday support session, you'll notice, is a 3-hour window. And this is come one, come all. It's open to anybody. Best use case would be somebody who just signed up and maybe they're waiting for their one-on-one. They can come in and get 3 hours of knowledge and ask some questions, and we can get some back and forth going. But this has been a really good a good event to help people stay up to speed and get the support and the questions answered that they need. What you're not seeing on here, as I mentioned earlier, was the one-on-one training. It's a free 1 hour. If you want to come back and do another 1 hour, it's $99. So, consider when Scott gives that promo code at the end of the webinar today for 15% off. Not only do you get 15% off, you'll get a free 1 hour with one of us to really help coach you and get you solidified and dialed up and going in the right direction and into how you want to use the product. So we're very proud of the amount of opportunity we offer the traders to get information, help, and ideas. And because of that, our subscriber growth here just continues on its parabolic journey, and we thank you all for that. We're going to have to continue to maybe hire a few new people here to absorb this growth. Before we get into today's webinar, just the Brokerage Plus slide, reminding people that do have a Brokerage Plus account, you can connect Trade Ideas to IB. If you have an IB account, Interactive Brokerage. The Brokerage Plus is the name of the tool that we use to do the connection. Now, I will recommend that it's much more of an intermediate to advanced tool. If you're a beginner, let's first work on getting the market figured out and other things. In other words, learn how to crawl before you start taking off and walking and jogging. And that's what this particular strategy, Interactive Brokerage Plus does. But for those that do want more information, we can give you more at trade-ideas.com/download. And it'll be coming out of beta pretty soon. So if you're a current user of a premium subscription and you have an IB account, you're already enabled for this. So, but again, it's highly recommended that intermediate and advanced users only. So let's get started. And the theme we always like to start our webinar off with is that man and machine. A great quote by Paul Tudor Jones: "No man is better than a machine. However, no machine is better than a man with a machine." And that's kind of the way we look at it here at Trade Ideas. We are the humans, and the machine is the Trade Ideas platform. And there is a nice dance going on between discretionary trading and what the Trade Ideas platform gives us. So today, as usual, we'll take a look at kind of what happened in the market today. We'll take a look at what happened in Holly today. The trade of the week, we'll spend some time on that. Once again, we used the Let's Go Fishing scan to find the trade of the week. And this is going to be exciting for some people that were not aware. New channel for cryptocurrency stocks. So the theme of cryptocurrency is obviously meteoric at the moment. Everybody's talking about it. So we put together another theme-based channel, which we will explore. Take a look at the sectors at a glance, and maybe see what could be coming on the horizon. And lastly, if we have some time, maybe we'll take a couple of chart requests, but don't type them in now. We'll take maybe 3 or 4 at the end of the session, and take a look at them. And it always helps if you let us know if you're in them, thinking about getting in them, or if you're long or short or what have you. But that's usually kind of how we finish up the day, or the webinar, I should say. All right, let's get started. I will stretch out the SPY, S&P 500 ETF, and talk a lot again about this trend line, which has been holding since the first of the year, actually last December, or the first. Looks like New Year's Day right there. So that New Year's Day low has basically held a trajectory of this trend line all throughout the year, except for this one moment here where we had some downside volume and got a little sketchy, but the buyers stepped back in, propped the price back above that trend line, gave it another nice test right here. That test is perfect because not only was it a breakout, it's also testing that trend line. So the trend line remains intact, probably more so than we would want, because the prices are way up here. And we are starting to get a little bit overbought, and standard deviations and gravity and 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. It's just going to be a matter of time before this trend line will be tempted or tested again at some point. I don't know when that's going to be. It could be for a while still, but as you can see, the price is really gravitating far above that trend line. So, very bullish, also very overbought. But let's take a look at what happened today. If you see my crosshairs here, we actually went to highs. We popped to highs right on the open, and then kind of sold off. Let me bring up the intraday, because this really kind of tells the story of what happened today. We started off with a really nice move higher right here, a little bit of a gap, and then a nice move higher in that gap, and then a solid 2 hours of buying in the S&Ps today. And then we hit some downdrafts, and pretty much at this point on, the rest of the day became just super chopville, very choppy, and that'll show up kind of in the risk on parameters when we look at Holly. So the SPY is strong on the trend line, and path of least resistance is still up for the spiders. Path of least resistance is still up for the Dow, the diamonds, same thing. I did not draw a trend line, but still kind of the same thing. 3 days of pullback back here, and 3 days is kind of something I've talked a lot about, whether a swing trade strategy works well to the upside. 3 days sometimes seems to test the best before we have a pullback. But conversely, sometimes after we have a nice move upwards, a nice 3-day pullback is just what the doctor ordered, to put in a nice higher low and dig in. So the Dow did that today. It made a little high, all-time high, but just like the S&P, after it made that all-time high, a little bit of a downdraft, and then some more selling at the close. So the Q is a little different story in the NASDAQ. We did not make a new high. That's what I mean by a little different story. We did not make a new high in the NASDAQ today. So the others did, NASDAQ didn't. I found that kind of interesting. We basically just kind of closed here with a doji narrow range candle. And bringing up the rear is our old buddy, the Russell 2000 ETF, the IWM. IWM doesn't seem to have any interest in trying to break out to new highs. Matter of fact, it seems to be kind of running for cover. And I've been talking about this line right here at the 150.75 level for the most part. It was holding the prices down way back all summer and fall. We dipped down and then broke through it, and then traded above and held above it for a few days, obviously. A little bit of a scare there. But now we're starting to head back down and threaten, after this weak close today, we're threatening to kind of come back in here into no man's land again. And if that happens, then we've got really no bias to look at. The spiders and the Dow obviously have a nice upside bias. The path of least resistance is up, but in the Russell 2000 and small cap land, a little different story. So that's the one kind of takeaway that I'm seeing today that is a little unusual, a little different. And anything you wanted to add, Mr. Andy?
Well, Steve, I agree, and that is it's definitely some relative weakness there in the Russell. So you're laughing at my voice.
You sound sick. You should really save your voice. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's the market recap. Path of least resistance is still up. not that it really matters, but for those that are curious, why did we sell off, into the afternoon today, across the board, really? I think it may have had something to do with the tax bill that's being jabber-jawed and jawboned again by Rand Paul, saying he may not vote for it. But I don't know, maybe those are just the broken ribs talking. So where are we going to go next here? All right, let's go to Holly recap, I take it. Let's see here. Come on, Steve. Yeah, we'll go to Holly recap. So as I was saying, if we look at the histogram here, well, let me back up even more. Coming into the morning, the first thing I noticed was, all right, Holly, what do we got today? Ooh, we don't have any shorts. That's kind of interesting. Okay, I wasn't really expecting that. And we only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strategies. So a really small bench today and a directional bias of only long. So after all said and done, and the day transpired, the day that we had, which started off with a real nice 2-hour push and then some air pockets for the rest of the day. The histogram on risk off, which again means risk off means exiting the trade along with Holly. The total aggregate sum of trades in the risk off mode was a positive 27 cents, which isn't much, but better than staying in those trades all day long, which was risk on. And as we can see by the general backdrop of the market here, risk on was not really working today. Again, the first 2 hours, we had a nice push, but once we got into lunchtime and for the remainder of the day, it was extremely choppy. And so that's the kind of, well, there you go. Look at that histogram, extremely choppy, and then selling off into the end of the day. So the risk on histogram really does kind of emulate and follow the path of what the general market was doing. So what this tells us was today, if you were trading in the last hour, the last couple hours, that, going for the big hold on the long side, going for the big hold wasn't really working. Getting in and getting out seemed to be better the order of the day. And that's just kind of what I noticed. There was no stop outs today, which is interesting. Just for those, I'll do a quick refresh. There are 5 exit reasons that Holly will exit. The first is the time stop, which we see in the parent window. Every strategy has a different time stop, and it looks like that happened here and here. We also have reduce risk. Reduce risk basically means, here's our trigger right here in that blue arrow. And then it pulled back, triggered, and then went up a little bit and came back and up and back and basically just kind of snaked along the entry line. Well, that's not what the AI wanted to see. The AI wanted to see the stock continue to move higher. So reduce risk is basically just like, let's just cut this, chalk this one up as not working, and we'll reduce the risk, meaning not sit in here and be stubborn and just write it down to a stop out. But as it were, this particular stock just did nothing all day except stay at the basic entry level that we had. So reduce risk is a reason for exit. The profit save is more fun to see, which typically means this was not a good example for profit save because they had a really nice profit in the morning and then turned around and actually hit the stop and went even lower. So this was a quick hit in and out. But what this means is the AI took 30, I'm sorry, where am I in this one? The AI, yes, basically flatted this one for a flat. It did not let it go much more. And by doing so, it basically got out right about here, it seems. Sometimes the profit saves will have a little bit more meat on the bone. Profit save should be considered trailing stop. That's probably the more common term people would use for a profit save. A position where the stock got in the money and then starts to pull back, and we want to go ahead and lock in some gains. Profit save would do that. The fourth exit reason, which we do not have on the board today, is a stop out. We didn't have any stop outs today. And the fifth is the most beauteous of all, which is the target hit. And today we did not have any target hits either. So kind of a wishy-washy day. I think, one of the trades that stands out to me the best, and I know Andy agrees, was CREE, C-R-E-E. It was breaking out of some really nice congestion here on the daily chart, 5 or 6 days of congestion. And then the profit target, boy, it did get hit. However, it kind of pulled back a little bit, and Holly got out on the timed exit. So basically, we got here sunrise mover. Sunrise mover is a 30-minute hold. So this was only active for 30 minutes. And so you can see in CREE, the 30 minutes worked pretty well. And then Holly basically got out because the shot clock expired. And as it were, it actually went on and hit that target, that profit target, and then kind of pulled back. So of all the trades in there today, this is the one that looked the best to me. I will admit Omer did look good at one point to me, and then, you know, the big reversal, can't argue with that. Did you want to add
No,
anything?
no, I agree with. I mean, that was the only really good trade, that I saw from, today. And but we didn't have a whole lot of strategies, that make the cut. And
No.
also, yeah, Steve, you just mentioned there was no shorts. Not that it was a good shorting day either, but some days are just lackluster, and this is one of them.
Yeah, some days are lackluster, and sometimes we have to keep an eye on things like Cree or other ones that look good for the next day or the following day.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, Riot. Look at who decided to do a trade right here. That buy tag signifies that Holly went long Riot on this day, and of course the AI does exit before the end of the day. But this was an interesting looking chart. It was wedging and starting to creep up the upside of that wedge, and then obviously exploded. But the buy tag on there shows that something was happening that caught the attention of the AI. And that candle, it really didn't do much that day. But guys, here's a great example of why it might be smart to go up and like that chart and heart that chart, and don't lose track of that chart. Or, the old school way to do it would be maybe to go in an example like this and say, that looks interesting, but I'm not going to be interested unless Riot, breaks above that particular candle back there. And then if I get a price alert to go, that could be another way to trigger the idea. But the like function, kind of a social media adaptation, is a really easy way to try and keep track of the stocks we like now. So I guess I'll take it one step further. What happens after the heart, Steve? How do we keep track of those? Well, you'll notice in the channel bar, we have one called My Liked Symbols. Basically, every symbol that I have liked to date that's active is on this screen right here. Because what we got here is basically a top list with no configurations. There's no filters. It's nothing but a symbol list, which is called My Liked, which is obviously activated by clicking on the heart. So when you come to the heart channel, you can kind of see what are my active stocks that I'm watching. Well, we can look at them in the top list format, and we can sort by who's up the most today, who did the most relative volume. Riot across the board seems to win the prize for that one. But this will make a little bit more sense when we get to the crypto channel, because it's kind of the same thing. We're looking at a basket of stocks in different time frames and different volume time frames and different parameters to kind of see what might be jumping out at us. So to get back to the default layout, I'm just going to do load layout, default, and then we're back to where we started. Mm-hmm. All right. I'll tell you what, I'd like to see some shorts show up in Holly tomorrow. I just would like to see some shorts test well tonight, but that's not my control. We can't control it. The AI is what it is. It's a self-sustaining entity that goes back to work this evening, and we'll see what she comes up with in the morning. But I'd kind of like to see a couple of shorts on there just in case we do get some weakness. All right, where to next? Trade of the week. So let's go fishing is the third week in a row that we've kind of went to the well on Let's Go Fishing. And I'm just going to bring it up here the easy way, load from the cloud. What is Let's Go Fishing looking for? So again, to backtrack, this is the third week in a row that we're looking for, that we actually selected a stock from the short list that came from Let's Go Fishing. HIBB, we were talking about that one on Friday, weren't we, Andy?
Setting up again, yeah.
So here's the perfect example. Let's Go Fishing is very similar to the trend change lubricant because they're looking for stocks that have been in a horrible downtrend. But if you were to draw with your eyeball just an imaginary trend line, you can see the trend line is in fact being broken. So whereas the top list looks, where the trend change lubricant looks for stocks with high short float that we can exploit on a short squeeze if we can identify a short squeeze, which may happen if HBB gets back above this red line. But the Let's Go Fishing scan is a little bit similar, but it's not looking for short float. It's looking for solid fundamentals. So just real quick, before we look at the charts, we take a look at the configuration here. It's stocks making new highs, which is probably the more common event in our alert windows. But these stocks are doing good average volume, 500,000 shares a day. And a couple other things, price earnings ratio. We've got a ratio filter in here to make sure that we've got decent price to earnings. Mm-hmm. The position and range is the same as before. 1 year range, 35% is the maximum. That's how we get these ugly downtrending charts. Let me just stop on that for a second. The trade of the week typically tries to look for stocks that are making a major shift in their cycles. Stocks go through cycles: euphoria, extreme euphoria, and then rolling over, and then I mean, I can't off the top of my head call them all, but then you start to get denial, and then capitulation and fear, and et cetera. And then the stocks base and they reset and they start again. And that's typically where we like to start our hunting for the trades of the week, are these types of trades, because if they work and they do in fact break their downtrend and start to move on a new cycle back upwards, they can move in the right direction for weeks at a time. Basically Weight Watchers was found, shoot, let me close that. Weight Watchers was found off of a trend change lubricant way down here. Square was found off of a kind of a trend change lubricant all the way down here. So I stopped briefly to kind of just highlight that, because what we're not doing is we're not going in and trying to look at Micron and say, hey, Micron just broke out of this level up here. Well, we don't care that it's already run from $9 up here to 50. We're going to go ahead and call it because that just looks so sweet. Well, yeah, it looks sweet. It was sweet for about a day and a half, and then you start to get these nasty pullbacks. Stocks like NVIDIA, they can break on you and go down 10% in a day. So typically, we're not trying to call these types of trends that are overextended. We're looking for stuff that is basing. All right. So that said, let's go back in time a little bit. Spirit Air 3 weeks ago was found on the Let's Go Fishing, and as you can see, has kind of the same look. Beat up on the downside, but turning and breaking and moving back up. So we chose Spirit Air, and the breakout was right about here at 38.50 or so. And we had a really nice 4-day move. I wish they would all be that easy, but they're not. But what I has mentioned in other webinars, and maybe even in the last Tuesday webinar, was that sometimes you can sell half. And selling half really does wonders to your psyche, and it allows you to participate in the longer term. I mean, you look at a stock like Weight Watchers and you're like, God, I probably would have sold all of it way back here. But what I'm trying to do is present a concept to you guys in swing trading. Patience is a virtue, and one of the easiest ways we can make our patience work for us is to sell half and get rid of those fear and greed demons that are sitting on your shoulder, screaming in your ear. A bird in the hand's better than two in the fist. A bird in the fist is better than two in the bush. It's been a long day. But I think you get the gist. And so by letting the other half ride, it's so much easier to not really focus on it and then change course and change your mind and get out. Selling a nice winner. In fact, I think we even prefaced it last week by talking about, when Andy and I were running the Ditto Trade account, which was a mirrored account that people were attached to, we had real people attached to our account. And we wanted to make sure that we delivered profits in a timely fashion when we could. And so one of our rules, our hard-pressed rules, was if you get a stock that runs for you, 8, 10, 12% pretty quickly, you're best off to really use that opportunity to take off a third or even half. And so I'm kind of hoping that maybe some people, that are in this heard me talk about that a couple weeks ago, and SAVE is a perfect example of how that can kind of work for you. Because all it's doing right now is just flagging. It's just waiting for its reason to hopefully pop and make a new high. But we're not as anxious about it because we don't have our full load. We have sold half for a decent profit, and now we're trying to let the other half work for us. So, trust me, through years of trial and error, selling half can really help add to patience. And patience is so important in swing trading because you can easily just stand on your head and change your game plan, if things aren't working out for you, and then get frustrated when the stock eventually does go. And you wonder, why the hell did I change my mind and get out? Well, selling half when things go the right way, it's a good thing. Matter of fact, if I owned any cryptocurrency, I'd be selling some right now. But I don't. All right, so that was Spirit Air. All right, great. So let me just make sure I got my questions here. Let me minimize this on my other screen so I can see my questions. All right. So Spirit Air was 3 weeks ago. Last week, not this week, but last week, again, IBM came through that particular scan. Again, down on the year, but had a couple other things going for it. Like one, for instance, it filled that gap almost perfectly, which kind of cleared the way for the bulls. Then we had a nice little consolidation sideways, and then we had, look, another Holly tag. Holly got interested in IBM this particular day. Probably saw some volume and saw it breaking out of this 4-day range. One to keep your eye on, even though Holly gets out at the end of the day, might be one to heart and keep your eye on. So what happened on this one is the green line right here. Basically, we triggered, I believe, I think we triggered the very first day, and that was kind of the high tick of the day. Then the second day was this green candle, and we went up to this level right here. Let's take a little look. There's a lot of stuff going on here for people who want to get better at kind of reading charts and the tea leaves. Why did IBM stop right there? Well, if we look back here, that was the low end of where it gapped up. That's kind of still in play. But nonetheless, it did sell, and the very next day we got a red candle. And look, another 3-day pullback, another beautiful, simple 3 days of pullback, dig in, create a new base camp, and then move higher. Well, here's where I want to switch to today. So we blew back through our entry point, and then we got to this orange line, which we can see has significance on the daily chart. That's where the selling occurred last week, and it was the bottom of that gap after earnings. So as we come into IBM today, a couple things. Actually screenshot it a little bit for us. So let's take a look at this first one. All right, there's the orange line that I said was going to be a tough one to get through. What do I talk about when we get the price levels to levels of pivots or resistance levels? What becomes the most important thing to me? Volume. Relative volume was 1.5. We'll take it. We will also look at volume 5-minute was at 235%, and volume 1 minute was at 400%. That's exactly what I want to see. There is volume coming into play that is above normal at critical levels. Well, that was the first one. And then so we kind of really gravitated and held around that level for a lot of the day. And then we tried to move higher. And then once again, I said, okay, we're going to new highs. What do our volumes look like? Well, not bad. Still a 1.5 relative volume, and still, 2.5 times normal 5-minute, 1-minute volume. Great, good news. But the day, as we saw, got soft at the close. But what I want to illustrate to you is look at what happens when I talk about pivot lines, future or prior resistance becoming future support, or prior support becoming future resistance. Well, that's exactly what happened with IBM. This is the same line going across here on the daily that's coming through the intraday. Chopped around, broke through it on volume, okay, then went to highs on volume. That was that candle right there, and then went to highs again, and then the market kind of caught it. But look at where it bounced. It bounced at the pivot line. This is exactly what I would want to see and expect to see. And I was happy to see going into the close that we were bouncing off of it, but last two candles, we closed right at or just below that level. So I'm highlighting that to really show you guys how pivot levels work. Where it was resistance back here, that was the level I was watching as it was going through, watching my volume levels. And then as it took its breath and did a pullback, where did it dig in? The same level. Prior resistance becomes future support. So that's what I really saw on IBM, which again was last week's trade of the week. And it's still in the money. And hopefully I would love to see a close tomorrow above that orange line. We closed right at that orange line today, but tomorrow I'd like to see a close above that to confirm that we are still moving higher, and that this 3-day pullback here was in fact a 3-day pullback and a higher low, which means the trend is moving higher. Lastly is this week, and once again we went to the well, and I mentioned in the content, got to stick with what's working. And this Let's Go Fishings have been working okay, especially Save. That was a great one. So we went back to the airlines. ALK, Alaska Airlines, similar type of look as what Save did just 2 weeks ago. Here's Save 2 weeks ago, bottoming out, rounding bottom, looking for a reason. I came in here and I identified the pivot level, a lot of congestion right here, a lot of selling right here, more selling right there, and that was the bust through that line. That green line actually is kind of hard to see. So we're doing the same thing here, trying to go to the well and see if we can get ALK, Alaska Airlines, to trigger and have a nice move up to these levels as well. Well, what happened was yesterday we had no trigger. You can see how close we got right here. Or was that Friday? That was Friday. And then yesterday we had no trigger, but today, boom, right on the open, a big candle on a big volume candle, pushed right through. And then it pulled back and the buyers regained their strength and slowly just pushed it right on through, back to highs. Then we pulled back up, kind of like what the market was doing, but towards the end of the day, we had a little bit of weakness in there. But what I want to say to you is, again, swing trading, position trading, whatever you want to call it, we're not scalping here, and we have to exercise patience. The stock did in fact trigger, and our stop, I believe, is down in this area. So there's really no decisions to be made. If the market gets super, super weak and this thing starts to roll back over, and if you want out, that's of course your discretion. But I feel that we still need to give this one some time, even though it had a little bit of a nasty close today. We're still creeping up on the daily. If we can get a close above 70.55, then that's kind of the same thing I want to see that I was talking about IBM. Closing above the key pivot levels is kind of showing who the victor was, and that's what we're looking at on ALK. So 3 weeks in a row, 2 of those 3 weeks were airlines. But again, I hope that I've kind of made it clear as to why we look for these types of setups, rather than going in and buying things at all-time highs or chasing things up here that could easily take the elevator down and wipe out a lot of people pretty quickly. So,
hey Steve, give me one thing. Go back to ALK and draw a quick trend line on that daily. You can see it going back there to. It looks like we're butting right up against it right now. Just right.
well,
No,
yeah,
no,
right
no,
from
no.
here to
That one
here.
right there. Yes, yeah.
So we'll go mark up trend line. And we'll grab that trend line, sweep this part down.
Yep.
Right,
So
tops of those. You could probably even make a
close.
case.
Yep.
Yeah, close enough. So, all right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So another way to look at it. I know a lot of people like their indicators, their itchy, scratchy clouds, and VWAPs, and anchored VWAPs, and Fibonacci's, and I try to just keep it simple with horizontal pivot levels, support resistance levels, and trend lines. Believe it or not, there's a lot you can do with just those 2 things, and it's basically the study of naked price action. All we're concerned about is the price action. If you're going to put stochastics on here and moving average convergence divergences, and you want 5 things to line up like planets in the stars, you're making it hard on yourself.
Exactly.
The more you can just kind of go back to fundamentals and study raw price action, which has to do with, again, support levels and resistance levels. Look at
You
this.
could also draw, if you don't mind, draw a horizontal line right to those lows in September. Not the wicks, just the bodies, kind of. There you go. Yeah, it pretty marries up close to that. Maybe down a little bit, to that trend line over there. So that would be a huge level for me. If you break through that resistance there, and then also get through that trend line, that you could really have some upward projection, I think.
Let's do it.
Yep, let's do it. I'm all for it. Yep.
All right. So that was a trade of the week, and we went back a little bit, spent a little bit more time on the last 3 trades of the week because they've all been kind of very similar in the same vein. So that is that. Where to next? Let's go.
Crypto channel.
Okay, everybody.
Blockchain.
So, some people are probably looking at my screen right now, and they're saying, why do I not have blockchain on here? Well, just as a little knowledge drop, this channel bar is kind of separate from the rest of the program, in that it kind of does its own thing and has its own coding. And because of that, just, logging off and logging back on is not necessarily going to reset the channels that are in here. So there's 2 ways you can reset the channels that are in here. One is to just open it up a little bit and grab that white space and hit refresh. And you saw the refresh. That should bring in the blockchain channel for you guys. The other way to do it is just the simple, close the channel bar, open a new channel bar, and you will have cryptocurrency, our brand new channel, which, by the way, pretty much all the credit goes to Andy for researching the symbols and coming up with a simple way to display the data. So let's take a look at Andy's handiwork here. Handy Andy. All right, so it's kind of like that heart channel we were talking earlier about when we heart a stock, and then you can go to the heart channel and see all of your heart stocks in different ways of displaying the data. So again, let's see what we got here. Let's pull this down. This one's called Blockchain Volume Watcher. Why am I explaining this? You should be explaining this. Okay. I know you got a bad voice, but
no. I could. Well, I wanted to basically, I've always liked the volume radar, so I kind of stole that volume radar and just I always show people how you can kind of just make it your own and added some columns and. So basically, it's just a simple top list without any filters, and I'm using the power of the columns, and which is great to do when you have a symbol list that you're trying to just keep an eye on. Don't use any filters and just drop your symbol list in there. And then you can just use columns, and you can sort by any column you want to. Which, by the way, remind me, I was looking into this, Steve, and remind me to tell Brad, he has this sorted by change in 5 minute, and there's no change in 5 minute column. So I don't know how that happened, because I thought it would have to be a column for you, even to give you that option. But
yeah, you better ask him.
I will. I'll
But you
talk
can
to him
sort.
about it.
Yeah, you can sort by whatever you want. If you want to see who did the most
Sure.
relative volume today, well, it was these two guys.
Mm-hmm.
Never seen this one before until today, but
Yep, that's a pink sheet. Yep. Change in 2 minutes. That's also, if you want to, get a quick glance at what's been moving the most in the last 2 minutes, you can sort by that change in the 2 minute there. That could be a very powerful one. So the volume radar, yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's a way, a volume watcher. I'm sorry, it's just a way for you to see where the volume is going in the blockchain, industry. What happened? No, that
well,
one.
yeah.
Start
I
go
want to
off.
give you guys this one. You might want to write this one down, guys. BITCF. Who was it? Was it you that brought that to my attention today?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So we have kind of a frenzy and a hysteria going on in the blockchain world and cryptocurrency. And this little pink sheet guy, I mean, it's not even over the counter, it's pink sheet. But Andy and I have seen that so many times, whether it was, defense stocks or nanotech stocks, right? I mean, how many can we come up with here?
Oh gosh.
The trying to create a title for it, the exuberant sector of the month award,
Oh yeah.
So once you've identified a sector, whether it's nanotech or whatever, we're going to call this the blockchain, and it's probably never been more white hot than it is right now. So if you'll notice, I've got a price alert set in this little pink sheet guy here at 61 cents. Keep an eye on BITCF, because these are the kind of ones that can come out of nowhere, and then before you know it, they're on everybody's chat, Twitter feed and chat room call for the day, pounding their chests. But Andy and I are seeing a little something here, a little something that might be worth just kind of maybe scribbling down BITCF on your notepad, guys.
Exactly.
Where did we find it?
And keep in mind, this could be just junk. I mean, you look over there in the single stock window, you're not seeing any earnings, no cash.
No,
so that's a red flag.
No,
so ride the wave and jump off. Just be careful. All these come with a caveat, guys.
If you have the ability to set price alerts, you might want to set a price alert at 61 cents on BITCF tomorrow on Trade Ideas, and if it goes off, man and machine, human indiscretion versus the machine giving you. I would have never seen this had it not been for the blockchain channel. Okay, and then you've got another one up here, the SMA tracker. What is this one doing?
Expand that a little bit. Now, right now, obviously with the move we're having, you're seeing a lot of green in there. I actually first got the idea of an SMA tracker because I was looking at money managers' portfolio,
right,
and they wanted a way to keep an eye on their portfolio. And what better way for them to drop their portfolio into a simple window that would be able to track where the moving averages are. And it's very easy on the color coding there. Basically, if it's below that number, it's going to be red. If it's above it, it's going to be green.
Which one are we sorting by? The way it is right now, change by? Or?
Change. That's a change from the close.
Okay.
So, but once again, you could sort it by 8-period moving average. So
these red guys here, these red guys here are showing you that the price is actually below the moving average.
But let's say you wanted to find out maybe which ones were sitting on their 8-period moving average. You could double click on 8-period moving average.
Let's do that. So just so you guys see, this is a good way to use the moving average filters or columns, I should say, on a top list. Double click, and there we go. UBIA is 111% above its 8-day. I can already picture what it's going to look like when I click on this chart.
That's the one you were just looking at. Yep.
And that's it. This thing is so far away from its moving average. Now, if you turn it upside down, we've got some obviously that are underneath it, but which ones are right at their interesting fast line? We call it the fast line. Many years. It's hard to get rid of that name. The 8 period is the fastest of the Oh, look, IBM. How about that?
Well, yeah, you know what? I think Brad took the liberty to add a few stocks. I don't understand a few of them, like J.P. Morgan and then Pfizer. Why is Pfizer in there? So those were not in
Okay. Well, J.P.
my
Morgan, he
my
could be
symbol list.
trolling Jamie Dimon. I don't know. Jamie
Yeah, I
Dimon
guess so.
been in
Yeah,
the news a lot.
looks like yeah, Microsoft's in there.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, there's some big cap companies in there that might have some exposure as
Hmm.
well. So interesting.
And then there's one other. If you pull down the volume watcher one over there, there's one other, and this is a multi-strategy, and this is one I think actually Brad added, and it just gives you right click in there. You can see the strategies. It's going to give you a broad,
Mm. What's it?
view
Yeah.
of everything
Is it
that's
going to
happening.
highs? Is it going to lows? Is
Yeah.
it running up, running down? Lifetime high, pre-market low, post-market high, post-market low. So that's kind of a good little bouquet of
Hmm.
events that could possibly happen to our crypto stocks. And then again, I haven't even done this yet, but I'm curious. Like if I go in and look at the configuration on the symbol list, okay, blockchain.
Watch.
Yep, we got an
Yeah,
actual
it's in there, guys. So you guys have access to that in the show them where they can find that in the ad. Uh,
yeah,
well, yeah.
I'll do it. Hang on one
Okay.
sec. So we'll go. So guys, yeah, if you're looking for how do I add the blockchain to my alerts, basically the old config window, symbol list, and you're not going to see it over here until you pull it out of the file drawer, which is right here. Add existing list, scroll down, and you will see
Watch.
blockchain.
Hmm.
So you just click that once, that moves the blockchain over here where you can put a check mark in it, and then once you've check marked it, that's it. You have just turned this entire scan, whatever scan you're working on, to only monitor the blockchain symbol list.
Hmm.
So pretty cool. We've had a lot of people recently asking a lot of questions about, what can we do in terms of cryptocurrency. Our first foray, first base, is to create a channel for it that'll kind of highlight some ideas. And I mean, if anything, you guys are going to probably find a few symbols in here that you never really knew about, and now they're going to be on your radar as pertaining to the white hot cryptocurrency market.
Hmm.
All right, so enough of that. The newest channel is there. Again, just resetting your connection is not going to do it. Okay, you got to basically close the channel bar and then reopen it. But we'll do that from the layout, which is probably more advised, not doing it on the channel itself. But to get that blockchain channel visible, the easiest way is just to close the channel bar and open a new one, and the new code will come in with it. All right. All right, quick question. How many of you were in yesterday's webinar? Were there a few of you here yesterday? Just kind of curious. I mean, if you are, you can throw it in there. All right, David. I know David was there. So, David, this will probably make sense. Remember yesterday we talked about sectors and how they don't last very long and how sectors seem to move and rotate quickly. Not one sector is going to stay strong forever. So yesterday we went through the sectors, which we're going to do again right now. But yesterday with Jamie, I said, let's just go through here and highlight a couple that caught my eye. And David, you heard it, Mike and Omar. I said the XLF, the IAI brokers, and the KB banks. Those were the ones that were most interesting to me. They were most interesting to me because they were kind of flagging on the daily. So let's do the same exercise again today. I don't expect XLF and the broker dealers and the banks maybe to be strong again tomorrow. Maybe they will. But let's just look down the line here and see if we can find something else that might be shaping up. No, not the Dow. What I said about the OIHs is they're kind of getting themselves into a wedge here, but they're still very much in no man's land, so not much going on there. IYR, not really seeing a whole lot there either. Pretty jagged daily chart. Steel was strong last week, and it's kind of coming back up again here. I think I had mentioned yesterday this is going to be an interesting level to watch in SLX right there. It was the high back here, and pretty much the high right there, and the close right there, and we did not close above it there. But nothing at the moment is jumping out. Agriculture stocks, they don't look that bad, but the problem is this ETF, I don't think really has a good sample of a lot of the agriculture stocks. But if you're thinking of some agriculture stocks, that's not looking bad. It's looking like it's trying to head back up higher. Gold miners, they're just having a hard time. And why is it, guys? Why is gold and silver getting annihilated? Why? Because Bitcoin. That's not an actual symbol. What's that symbol again? GBT. This is destroying the gold and silver market, guys. The defense currency. This is taking away all of the interest for now from the gold and silver. So the big fall that you've seen in gold and silver pretty much has to do with the cryptocurrencies just going white hot. So not seeing a whole lot there unless the cryptocurrencies do have a really bad overnight crash and we get an oversold bounce in those. That could be a possibility. Healthcare. Oh, interesting. Healthcare has had a nice 3-day push, but it's probably expended a lot of energy getting there. That one may be one to watch in the coming days. Gold and silver, we talked about those. Energy, could be looking for a breakout here pretty soon, but nothing at the moment. Treasuries, I never really focused too much on. Technology is going to look just like the Qs today. And there's the Qs right there. Home builders. These, I haven't written these off just yet. I mean, they had a nice, if that's not a nice kind of a topping tail, I don't know what is. Gravestone Doji gapped up and had a nice long topping tail, but we're just kind of going sideways again. So the home builders, may have some more left in them. They're kind of flagging like the XLF and the brokers were yesterday. So don't write them off. IWM, yuck. Now we're heading into kind of the junky part of the day. Gold miners just as bad. I had said yesterday that the airliners were looking okay, but we had a little bit of a pullback as we saw in Alaska Airlines and in Spirit Airlines today. So we may have to work a little bit of that off. Hopefully we don't sell off probably below the trade ideas line right there. That smart stop is probably there for a reason. Look at how it goes all the way across here and hits those highs back there. Interesting. Semis, we know that they've also, look at that. A lot of people really wanted to buy that first dip in Micron, and it didn't work. See, there's that washout bounce that I like, but the problem is things had such a run that the very next day the sellers came back in, and then the buyers came back in for 3 days, but now we've got the sellers coming back in. This could very well easily, right here, guys, turn out to be a lower high, and if that's the case, then we might have a little bit of trouble coming into tech and semiconductors, but that's not looking very good today. Solar's just kind of no man's land. Oil, commodity, stay away from that. Retail was looking really strong, but gave back a lot today. Interesting. And then natural gas and China. So I really didn't see a whole lot other than maybe home builders kind of caught my eye. There wasn't a lot of damage done in the financials and the banks. Maybe they follow through tomorrow, but that's kind of what I'm seeing from a sector glance, unless you saw something that I missed, Andy.
No, that looked all good to me, Steve. Nothing really jumped out at me.
Yeah. Okay, guys, red light, green light, go. Symbols that you want to, for symbols that you want to see, we'll take up to a maximum of 4 or 5. And thank you. You're quick there. Don, JP Morgan, we'll start with that one. If I could type. Not bad. Definitely part of the IAI and the XLF, so had a good day. And looking like it's trying to dig in there off that that higher low. That's what needs to hold. We've had a nice 3 or 4 day bounce, and we could see a little bit of sloppiness going forward, but it feels like it's a foregone conclusion that JP Morgan's going to want to go up there and test that. I just don't know how soon. Yeah.
Setups like this is always difficult for me because look at the run it's had in the last 3 months, and right now it's kind of in no man's land on the 10-day. So you got to ask yourself, wow, do I buy it here, or if I let it go all the way up and break out of a new high, now I'm chasing again. These type of setups are difficult. Now, if it gets up there and maybe goes sideways for a few days and forms a nice little launching pad, that's different. But yeah, those are always a tough one for me.
I like to see stocks that back to highs after they've expended all the energy bouncing, hit that level and go sideways for 3 or 4 days. That's perfect in my book, quite honestly. Before I go to the next one, which is SNBR, somebody asked a good question, and you did answer it. Omar's question about the SLX, and how do we find the components of these things? Well, Andy and I have been doing this for longer than 10,000 hours. We just know off the top of our head we can rattle them. But for you guys, go do a Google search and just Google, what are the components of SLX, and you'll probably see I'll rattle off a couple of quick names for you. Reliance
Mm-hmm.
Steel, X Steel, Steel Dynamics, STLD, AKS. Having a tough time, AKS is not as happy as the other ones.
Nucor.
And Nucor, another interesting one. Nucor is breaking out here as well. But X, going back to X, and look at that. That one had a really nice run. X is probably, big old topping tail there. X is probably ready for a pullback, which we could maybe go right here, look left, and say, maybe that's the level to watch. Who knows? But sorry to go off pace there. I wanted to, kind of remind everybody that you can take any one of these components and then just go to Google, what are the major stock holdings in KBE, KRE, IAI. You're going to find a lot of brokers, etc. All right. SNBR, currently in a options strangle.
Sleep number.
What's that?
Sleep number, mattress.
Oh, yeah. Is that what that is, SNBR?
I would think, yeah.
I didn't know.
No,
Sleep
I'm just
number,
looking.
you're right.
Nope.
Sleep number. So, okay. So he's asking, well, what I'm seeing here is
Nice.
the AI, the technology of trade ideas is kind of pretty much giving you the whole story right there, I think. I can see that, Andy? Obviously, there's the breakout we want if you're long. But right here, the downside, we got a flag forming. And if this flag breaks this suggested smart stop area, I would throw a caution hat on pretty quickly, and I wouldn't give it too much. If you want to give it a few minutes to see if it's just going to lift the stops and buyers come back in and reverse it, that's always an option. But if you're going to sit through this thing all day long on a red candle and it just keeps bleeding and the buyers don't show up, then it's breaking that flag, and I wouldn't trust it much going forward.
Right, but I tell you what, you do have a nice flag developing there, and look at the short float. You got almost 27% of it float. So if that thing does break out to the upside, you could have, very nice move. Yeah.
Look what I did, guys. I moved. I don't know why it took me so long. Short float and float should go synonymous, and I have my float down here at the bottom forever. So just real quick, point of order here. You can go in and configure that thing, and the third tab is the one that you want. So I got my volume 5 minute at the top. Under that, I got 1 minute, and then you'll see the float was lower, but I brought it right up underneath the short float. So I'm just trying to make it easy on the eyes so I can go short float, float. Anything under a 20 million float with a high short float above 25%, that can always be a great recipe for short squeeze. So we like those. So I wanted to make sure that my eye is not having to bounce all over this particular window. The fundamental stuff's on the left, the technical volume stuff's on the right, and then the short float and float are very close together now. So if you weren't aware that you could configure that third tab will allow you to completely customize where you want each data point to show up. All right, so believe it or not, we don't have any more stock requests, and that's fine because
it's getting about that time.
It's getting about that time. I'm losing my voice, and so is Andy. And so let's go ahead and bring in Scott and kind of close this out. Hello, Scott.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you. A couple of items before we head out. We will have the promo code, but first want to make sure everyone's aware of the podcast that we put out every week on Fridays. There'll be a new one this Friday. This Friday's is the last of the year, but to become a subscriber, just search for Trade Ideas Podcast in whatever app you listen to them in and subscribe. Listen to last week's. There's a really good breakdown of cryptocurrencies and Dan and Jamie's early forays into mining Bitcoin on the last one on Friday. So subscribe now. Go listen to that archived one from last Friday and get ready to listen to this Friday's on Friday afternoon. We have a code. It's a discount. Save 15% off your first month or year of any subscription. Just use Holly Jolly, all caps, like you see it on the screen. Or you can also download the handout. Just expand the handouts panel on your GoToWebinar interface and download the PDF. You got some of these cards as well as a contact card. Use that code before the end of the month to save. And remember that every subscription includes a full hour of one-on-one training. Get that hour of power training after you become a subscriber. Once you become a subscriber, I'm sure you have some questions. Start writing those down and watching the help videos and book your training appointment. It's the best way to get up and running. Also, any questions at all, shoot us an email. info@trade-ideas.com is the help desk email, and that goes to our help desk software, so it gets routed to the appropriate team member to get back to you as quick as possible. Or you can reach out to Steve or Andy directly. It's Steve at or Andy at You can also follow Steve on Twitter at Today Trader or Dan Merkins at Trade Ideas One. Follow us on Facebook at Trade Ideas Pro on Facebook. And there you can share our content with your friends and kind of spread the love around. We'll have a recording of this up later on, either tonight or tomorrow morning. You'll get a reminder about how to find it. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Andy.
Mm-hmm. You're
Yeah.
welcome. See you guys next time.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. See you on Thursday.
See you on Thursday. Bye.
Bye-bye.